Am I the antagonist for not accepting my 16 male dad, 38 male, coming out as gay? For context, my parents have been married for 18 years and I have 4 younger siblings. My mum, apparently, was completely blindsided and had no idea. They were both raised in a fundamentalist Christian environment and were each other's first for everything. A story that I've heard 1,000 times, so it makes sense. But I'm so shocked, angry and hurt that he lied to us for so long. My mum is also a stay-at-home mum who married my dad out of high school. So, let's talk about what happened. Last week, I heard my mum crying alone in her bed after what I'd presumed had been a quiet argument, since her crying woke me up instead of any shouting and my dad was nowhere to be seen. I asked her what had happened, and she told me everything. My dad had revealed to her that he's gay, and has known this for the majority of his life, and he wants a divorce. She said he planned on telling us in the upcoming months gradually, to get us used to it, but that since I'm the oldest, I deserve to know first. Instead of letting him come to me as per my mum's advice, I went to him immediately the next day, and demanded an explanation. I admit that he was very level-headed and calm about it, saying he understood why I was upset. But I was having none of it and basically told him that he's an awful, selfish coward who took advantage of my mum for years and that I'd never forgive him for wasting her time. He just nodded solemnly and said I'd understand as I got older, which made me even more angry because it was such a passive and emotionless response. I told my guidance counsellor about this, and she said that my response was an emotional one, not a logical one, and that I should apologise. However, why should I say sorry when nothing I said was untrue? I'm not homophobic. It's the lie I'm upset about. However, I'm beginning to wonder if I'm in the wrong here. Apocalypse says, start with understanding in what kind of era and religion your father was raised. He probably heard demonic slurs about gays all his life and lived in years in fear of being one as well. I'm not going to say you are or aren't the jerk at this moment. You have better things to think about. Your dad staying in a marriage with your mum would be unfair as well, because that robs her of the chance of loving someone new in the future. Robert says, OP, you're not the antagonist for having an emotional response. I would say there's no antagonists here. The family life your parents made and the experiences they had together are still real. Calling your dad a coward is unfair. You likely had no idea of the pressure he was facing to appear normal within his community. He's still your dad, and the most important part now is that he still supports your family as a father. It's better he tells the truth than perhaps continues to a point where his, and as a consequence, your mother's mental health suffers further, or that things end up coming to the fore in a bad way. I'm sure your dad regrets nothing about his family life and perhaps even sees this as a way he and your mother can continue without resentment and perhaps more fulfilling relationships while still being your parents. I can't imagine how shocking this is for you, and it's terrible that people like you and your mother get hurt, but this is why there should be acceptance of homosexuality in society, so people don't feel forced to hide who they truly are. Tweedledum says, no antagonists here, but if you don't work on eventually accepting this news, then you are the antagonist. I understand why you would find the revelation upsetting, and it's really problematic when gay men are pressured, often by religion as in this case, to deny their truth and to be in relationships with women. In part because, as you have identified, it is unfair and cruel to the women in these relationships. But I do think you owe your father some understanding for the kind of pressure he was under within a fundamentalist Christian environment to suppress and deny being himself. This is still happening to young gay men today and was more intense in the 80s and the 90s. I am sure that your father has been hurting for a long time, and it took him a lot of courage to finally come out. I urge you to try and give him some understanding for what he's gone through and how the fundamentalist tradition he grew up in led him to make the choices he did, at the expense of the truth and to the harm of both him and his mother. But also to look at the ways in which your parents did support each other and make each other happy. I'm sure that they both love you very much. I think all three of you separately should look for counselling or therapy to process this. And finally, Crystal Zelda says, honestly, as an LGBTQ person, I understand the trauma of starting to realise that you're not straight, especially in a less than accepting culture. But let's not pretend there's no trauma associated with your husband of 18 years, the man you had 4 children with, was intimate emotionally and sexually with, telling you, I am not attracted to women emotionally or sexually. I don't want you and never have. I am now leaving you to find emotional and sexual fulfillment with people who can give that to me, because that's not you. You don't think she looks back at every intimate moment over the last 20 or so years with humiliation and hurt now because she realizes she was doing that with someone who was forcing himself, didn't want to be there, and didn't want to do this? Of course it's horrible for him, but it's terrible for her. I really don't like how people in general are glossing over the damage it does to men and women who are left by their partner after spending years with someone who were never even attracted or interested in you in the same way. How do you ever trust anyone ever again? This is a real devastation she's going through. And there you go. Wow. I agree with the last one. Okay, so OP is not the antagonist, but Dad has got some answering to do. Of course, in his time growing up, there would have been a lot more oppression. I think, in terms of legislation and tolerance, America's not that tolerant with that kind of stuff. Surprisingly, I guess it's quite a recent thing, right? I don't know if it's legal in all the states yet, but I think it was still prohibited, like gay marriage or civil partnership, around about Barack Obama's time in presidency. There we go. That is sad, especially because she's a stay-at-home mum now, so she's gonna have no job skills. So they set up this whole life, got married, had 4 children. Oh my goodness, she put herself through like physical and emotional toil, and for some people, they can't. That's life changing, isn't it? Birthing a child, especially 4, like physically, and then being a stay-at-home mum. So she's got no job skills now. She was made to be a stay-at-home mum. He's got the skills. He was the breadwinner, bringing in money to the into the house, and that's quite sad. So yeah, now she's gonna be struggling quite substantially because she hasn't got those skills that she could have acquired. And he knew this stuff, and he's proposed and had children. He didn't have to do that. He could have just not ever married and just not had kids and just stayed with her. But yeah, even managed to feel like she's wasted 18 years of her life. Oh well. Yeah, well, that's quite sad. Let me know what you think in the comments below.